Alrighty. So this is really exciting with our first mentorship session. Again, as I said, we're going to have virtual classroom experience. We're going to be going through all the questions that you've all pre-submitted to me. And then, we'll just be able to chat about them in, a group format. So let's just start it off. I'm not going to do these in any particular order, but I'm going to pull a question from each individual, and we'll go from there. So the first question, I think this is a good one to open up with. How can I better handle one of my participants if I have to repeatedly tell them to do something or to stop doing something? In brackets, I have one participant who needs to be told repeatedly to focus or listen, or even after explaining to the class to make sure that they're watching, they still don't quite know what to do. So this is a really interesting one, and I like it because I feel like in a coaching perspective, we've all had this type of participant in one format or another. So I don't know, Kelly or Scott, would either of you want to, jump to this one first?
Sure, I can. And it is very common.
Mm-hmm.
Some things in the past that I've done is give them a task. Make them be the one that holds your binder when you go from station to station, so that they're, by you. And then that way it kind of helps them get focused. If they have any, ADHD, stuff like that, you could give them, age group, a stuffy or something to hold that keeps them busy. But usually if they're busy, they're focusing on you also. Like, you have to get to know some of the participants. They can be doing something totally irrelevant, but listening and knowing what you're telling them. So you really have to pinpoint what the behavior is. And then if it's a focus issue, maybe give something that will stimulate if their arms are moving or something like that as you're giving them the instruction, that kind of thing. If it's not listening, maybe you need to get down to their level if it's a younger child. A little bit of suggestions. Scott?
My first question with that one was going to be, is there any other disorders there, like you just mentioned, ADD and or on the spectrum? Because I find a lot of the kids that we're dealing with in that situation, quite often, that's actually the case. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the parents indulge and let us know, and quite often they don't. And we always have to try to figure that out. And sometimes as a new coach, it'll take you quite a while, unless you've had experience with other kids, on whether or not you'll notice that right off the bat. I think with a lot of the years of experience, and I have parents who do ask, what kind of experience do you have with, my child who may be on the spectrum and or ADD? And besides the odd little thing that we've done at conferences, no formal education at all, except for me doing some reading as much as I can here and there. But I didn't go to school for anything but I've dealt with them lots, and I do recognize it a lot sooner than I ever did before. When they come into summer camps and you spend a day with them, and also you figure out, okay, that's somebody that we need to pay attention to. And it's unfortunate because a lot of parents don't actually spend the time, or not spend the time, but they don't let you know, because they kind of want them to just to be part and parcel with the class. They want them to blend in. They don't really want to know, but sometimes we just dealt with somebody in our climbing class, the exact situation that she didn't let the coaches know what was happening, and they didn't know. So they were a little bit shorter with them. But if they would have known that, he's having problems, exactly the situation, not really focusing, not interacting. And I think Kelly's got that good point. Get down in front of them and get that eye-to-eye contact for sure. Are they actually listening to you? And if it's a behavior thing and it's a safety issue, then you might have to make that deal of, unfortunately, if you don't start focusing, you might have to sit out. But I always make a deal with kids with that. If they're in trouble, then you'd make the deal. I'm going to let you back in. Here's what the scoop is. Do what you're told. We make a deal. And then the ball's in their court as far as discipline goes. So if they do break your deal, then you kind of you sit down and say, hey, look, this is what you're supposed to do. This is what you're not supposed to do. But you have to give them a consequence. If that's sitting out or chatting with their parents or whatever it is. So I think that's more of a discipline thing. But if they're just not focusing, quite often that's just a child that's not going to be able to focus very well. ADD, like the majority of us hanging around here. So it's one of those things, is exactly that. It's that extra attention needed. But if it's out of hand, you also have to think, and I hate to say worst case scenario, but if you've got 8 or 10 kids in your class and that one is taking all of your focus, then that definitely requires a chat with the parents to say, hey, help me with this. What do you do at home to help me with your child here? Like say, I'm having issues with them. We're kind of struggling. And quite often then the parent will say, oh, well, this is what we do. And this is what, usually works with us. Because I guarantee if you're having issues with them in your class, they're having issues at home too. So I think talking to the parent, if it doesn't work with you to try to focus one-on-one, then definitely go to the parents right after that, as soon as you can too, to say, help us work through this. Because it's not fair to the other kids to always spend all your time on that. And then the other parents are going to say, hey, you're always spending time with so-and-so. Can you do something about it? My child needs coaching too. So there's kind of two edges on that one. Yeah.
Those are really good suggestions. What I'd like to add to that, because we do mention different things like ADD, ADHD, unless it has been, I guess, medically confirmed and the parent has informed you of this on like the medical notes upon registration as a coach, do not say or diagnose a athlete or a participant to do that. That's not your place. And unless you have that formal training to be able to do that, do not go down that rabbit hole. As Scott said, it's a much better way to go about it. Have a chat with the parents and make it about the participant. Make it about how can we help them have a better experience at gymnastics. If it goes that far down on that spectrum, if it's more so they're just kind of fidgety, then I think Kelly and Scott too, you can maybe agree or disagree. I could be wrong too, but if you can be the most, I guess, engaging and exciting coach in the room, and you're drawing their attention to you, you will be more entertaining or more drawn in than whatever other thing that they're not focused on. So of course, if you're just like kind of slumped and you're kind of just, hey, everyone, we're at bars now. We're going to, it's not that exciting, but like, oh my goodness, everyone, we're at bars. We're going to be doing some swings. We're going to start the game. Like how long can we hang on to the bar for and see who's got the biggest muscles and how strong we are? Like starting with a game or a contest or something that's engaging to be like, oh, I want to be a winner or I want to try or something like that is another good tool that you can use to help engage that individual in case they're really struggling to get the focus. Because sometimes too, it's just like doing a Zoom call at 6:30 on a Sunday. If you're kind of not into it or if you're a little bit tired, it's easy for you to kind of just zone out, right? But if you can be engaging as a leader or as a coach, I hope you carry along.
Well, that's an excellent point. Sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
I was going to say, one thing I find works with some of the students is you give them two choices, but both that are okay for you. Mm-hmm. Your choice is you can go here or here. And then they choose and say, okay, you chose to go there. So that's where you have to stay if it's a circuit or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of, like Scott had said, it puts it back into their playing field. And then you could say, oh, you chose to go over there or you chose to do this. So sometimes that really helps. And then, you know what, if you can't follow this choice or that choice, then maybe we do have to go talk to your parent, or maybe we have to, if it's a safety issue, you're going to have to, go over here, or I need to bring in my supervisor if that's an option. So.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And Bobby, I really liked your point of view on the fact that make sure that you're the distraction, not others.
Yes.
It's a great, because it's when we teach our courses, and maybe Michaela, because you're brand new, is try to keep in mind that it's a common error is when somebody stands where they can see their class, but everything else is behind them. Mm-hmm. So you need to switch it around. So they're staring at a wall and you, if that's the case. And especially with that, that was a great suggestion.
Ooh, love that.
Yeah.
From the rest of the class, any other, I guess, thoughts? Go ahead, Mackenzie.
So this would work more if it isn't a child that needs extra help, but something I do in our red and tan classes, so that's 6 to 8, is I have an ask a friend first rule. So after I explain everything and I know they heard me, before they can ask me what to do on a bar, they have to ask somebody else in the class, if it's a class who's constantly not paying attention, because there's always at least 1 or 2 kids who will know. And then you don't have 6 kids asking you. And I find that's really helpful. And then they also get to talk to their friends and know each other. But it only works with the older age levels, because 3-year-olds can't do that.
I love that. That's a great suggestion, Mackenzie, because I think too, what that also is reinforcing, and this is kind of something that we'll dive into. This is a more of a deeper topic, but I don't want to start with too heavy of a thing, but that's a great way to just have your participants, your group learn those life skills in terms of like problem solving and asking around with their peers rather than just going straight to coach or straight to mom to be like, what do I do? What do I do next? Type of thing. Love that. Great suggestion. Kiana, Kayla, Michaela.
I actually find that the classes that have like the worst listeners are not the baby classes anyways. I find that they're the ones that could understand that rule. And I didn't really have a suggestion, but I had a story because literally last week I had a new kid in my class, and it was really difficult because he hadn't like done sports at all before, especially with like COVID and stuff. He was a 4-year-old, so he didn't really know how to like follow in a line even, or how to like sit patiently for turns and stuff like that, or wait patiently for turns. So that was a new experience for me.
And then in terms of having, I guess, this child, this athlete that you were working with, how did you go about in terms of managing that in that point in time? Do you remember?
I definitely was giving him a lot more attention than the other kids because he was also new and such. But I used like poly spots and would use those to make spots and hoops and things like that, so that he would like have his own space that he wanted to hang out in. But he still liked to get up a lot. So this was a helpful question for me. So
I love that. Wonderful. Great. Kiana, Michaela, any other thoughts or comments or anything you'd like to add on this? We can always come back to anything. Also, don't feel like that once we've moved on that we ever have to just never talk about it again. But yeah, I just want to make sure we provide that opportunity.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
So for my classes, I don't have like a specific station that they have to go to and stay for a certain amount of time, right? I have them like choose whatever station they want to work on, making sure that they're trying all the stations. So if I had one of my girls or guys, one of my participants, and they're not like focusing or just like wandering around, should I put them on a specific station, or should I like try to encourage them to go and try them? Or like, even if they're not going to try them after I've encouraged them, should I put them on a station?
Kelly, you want to take a crack at this one? Or Scott, actually, go ahead, Scott.
Well, I just think it's an interesting scenario because you're kind of doing the exploratory, here's your stations, here's you go. And I find sometimes that's really successful and sometimes it's not. And you're definitely going to find it not successful with people who can't focus on one thing. I find if you're going through stations in a circuit, one after the other, this child that we're talking about will be the one who's going to skip one, who's going to be flying through one. He's going to spend too much time on one. And so I'm just right now thinking as I'm talking on how that would work with yours, because that structure is not there to go from one to the other in a certain time period or as a continuous activity. So yeah, I think that you definitely he'd have to be more focused on, here's your station, work here for whatever time period it is. And then you get everybody to move at the same time. When it might work better. Yeah, it's an interesting scenario.
So I should like build that structure for my class, and that might help that participant in a general.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And you
Well, I
don't
find
have
that
to have it
continuous.
for,
Sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
you don't have to have it for every class, but maybe just for the first couple, so that they start to understand what to do. Maybe they don't even know what to do on each of the stations. And there's some participants that unless you tell them specifically, this is what you do with this equipment, they just can't think of it themselves. So maybe putting a little bit of that structure in, and then as hopefully they understand and figure out it, then you can make it more of a open gym, go explore type of a class.
Kayla, you had your hand up. Did you want to add anything?
yeah, I was going to say something, but Kelly kind of made it not irrelevant, not relevant anymore. But not because her answer was so good, not because of anything wrong. I was just saying to give structure, like some idea, because me and Michaela work at the same gymnastics club. We just recently changed our classes to 2 hours instead of 1 hour. So now we're used to half an hour rotations. So kids get pretty bored when they're like stuck on a station for like 5 minutes or something like that. So that's why we do things like that. But then your idea of just doing it for our first few classes. And then I was also thinking that you could also make it a reward, like that if they are following the rules, or if they promise to follow the rules, then they'll get to choose whatever station they want to go to, you know?
Absolutely. These are all different tools that you can kind of have in your coaching toolkit. To Kelly's point, I would think that especially if they're new to gymnastics, your first few classes, you'd probably want to have more structure in terms of telling them exactly what to do. And then once they're kind of familiar of how to walk the walk in the class, we go to the bar station. We know that we lift our feet up or do a pullover. We get to the cheese mat. We can do a log roll, forwards roll, shoulder roll. Then once they kind of have those, I guess, skills in the backs of their minds, then they know. And then you as a coach can kind of go to the if or of you can do your log roll or your forward roll or your shoulder roll. I'm fine because you're still doing a rotation, but that's what I want you to do down. I don't want you to just sprawl out on the cheese mat and make a traffic jam for the rest of the circuit. So yeah, again, tools in your toolbox.
Or pictures scattered around. You know, on the beam, have pictures of stork stands and arabesque and things that you want them to do. And you can have, you know, different ones each class. And then that, I don't know what to do. You know, oh, well, look at this, try this. Yeah. And give them, again, teach them how to teach themselves. Go over the class, say, you know, we have these are the skills, and then put them out. Go try it. Let's see what you can do. And then if they're not doing anything, hey, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And that might be something that could encourage them to expand what they need to be doing and learning.
Michaela and Kayla, I guess, could both answer this one at the same time, because I'm just right now, because you added to this. So you have kind of that exploratory discovery kind of class, but for 2 hours, I'm trying to figure this out in my head. That's, like I said, I personally have never run the discovery ones except for more of a at the end of the class or some points of the class, not that I never do it, but not as a whole class. Because I am a little bit of a structure freak with that kind of stuff. There needs to be order in the class. However, I'm trying to picture, like I was thinking of a 45-minute discovery chat class, but 2 hours. Maybe just kind of describe a quick little overview of how that works for you, because it might help us in what we're thinking with other questions with the way your classes are running too.
Well, I find for the 2 hours, like Kayla said, they get really bored very fast. So having to have like entertaining stations that they're like able to like keep on working at and getting better when they like finding progressions to work on, even when they get to the station. I find that that helps to have progressions and stuff. But yeah, it's definitely tricky trying to keep them focused for like 30 minutes on one station. It's not easy.
But do you run circuits, like continuous activity circuits during this time? Or is it all changed?
I just have them like every 30 minutes we go to a new station, but when we get to one station, I have them just choose whatever one that they want to work on. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah?
I'm just trying to picture how the class would run that way. No, I don't. Like I said, that's a new concept for me. And did Airdrie change to that concept recently? Or has it been that way for a while?
No, we just changed to it, right, Kayla? I think this was the first one.
I don't do that, but I don't know. I do more like station like rotations, but maybe we were doing that on purpose. I don't know.
Okay. Mackenzie.
I don't know like what age group it is that you do that for, but could you maybe do like, so when you show your station, I don't know how your guys' gym is set up, but like for my stuff, I'll show my station in like a circle, and then like my kids know like that's the circle we do the circuit in. So would you be able to do like 15 minutes of a circuit and then change like 1 or 2 spots and then let them do like your free time way? So then they have like that break, because 30 minutes is a long time for many kids, I'd say. So then you could do like your 15 minutes of structure and then do the next 15 minutes, let them pick their spots. That might be more engaging, maybe.
Good suggestion for sure. I think the one
Yeah.
thing too that like with coaching is there's never a recipe, because your participants and even yourself is going to be different every time. So you have to be a little bit adaptable. And again, just keep on reaching into that toolkit. And like there might be a day where you have a very structured circuit and everyone goes and they work really hard. And then you have another day, they had a long day at school, they're tired, they're really itching to get moving, and they're just crazy. Then you're going to have to do things a little bit differently, right? Instead of maybe having a structured circuit, maybe you need to have a break and we're going to have a quick game to kind of get that energy out so that then they can refocus and just have unstructured play where they're not thinking about achieving anything aside from just having fun. But again, every day is different. So it's like, again, and that's the thing too that Scott was saying, to say that you're just a GFA coach is not, because you have to be a gymnastics coach, a like psychologist, and you have to have class management, and you have to be a policeman and a bodyguard and all these things. So like there's like so many different things that go into being a coach. It's not an easy job. If anything, in some respects, in terms of class management, I think it's harder than being a competitive coach. But again, different skills for different things, right? Love it. What I want to do is I want to roll to the next question that we have, because I have a lot of questions, which is good. We have many weeks that we're going to be kind of going through this. But I do want to make sure that we have more questions answered, but also too, I'm going to format these so the questions kind of still roll into each other. Today's theme already I can feel is a very much so a class management type of theme. So let's keep rolling with it. I'm going to go to the next one. So this is a good one, actually. I really like it. So what are some ideas I can do to better manage my class when I have participants in different levels? And I'm going to add to that question, or participants with a different ability levels. Because this is a reality. We're never going to have participants that are going to be the exact same, I guess.
Back pocket skills is what I try to teach everybody. Is if you set up your circuit or your stations and say it's a forward roll, you always have to have what's a progression that's for these for somebody who finds that challenging. What's that progression before that they can work on? And of course, if it's too easy, what's the next progression after that? And so it's something that I find it takes a lot of experience sometimes, and sometimes not, depends on your background. But in this case, it's 100% those I would just call it the back pocket skills. You're watching Bobby's doing dive rolls all over the place when he's supposed to be doing forward rolls. Okay, Bobby, let's set up a little thing that you can do dive rolls for. And, or, if he's totally bored with cartwheels and he's going to do one-arm cartwheels, or just always have that other thing. And if it's a challenge, then you have to go back it up a little bit. But I think that comes with experience, but it also comes with having that list of progressions for every skill, which are pretty well throughout all the Can Gym manuals and stuff like that too. But I think my personal answer to that one is to always have that. If it's too challenging, here we go. And if it's not, and then it kind of depends on age levels too, but still you're always going to be dealing with what that skill is, right? What that station is. So it doesn't matter what their ability or their age is, they're going to walk in and go, okay. And you also know, I always give them a couple times, if they're going around the circuit, they're going to do it anyway, whether it's too easy, unless it's too hard and they can't do it, then of course you're going to change that right off the bat. But then when it's kind of Kelly can probably say the same thing when we're evaluating our coaching videos, and you get to watch it from not being on the floor, you're watching it from watching the kids, and you get to watch, because we're supposed to watch the kids too. You're always finding the kid that that's not challenging enough, because they start getting bored and they start whipping through stuff and doing something else and that kind of thing. And that's hard for the coaches to notice, because quite often they don't notice that person. They're just focused on whatever they're working on. But to me, it's back pocket skills.
One thing too, you'll get the children that see others that can do it and either get discouraged if you have a mixed level in one class, and just, let them know some people will get skills sooner than others. And you know what, you could be really good at this, and this person is struggling. We all are working at our own pace. And maybe they've been, some smaller have multiple levels within like smaller clubs or smaller groups, depending on how your club sets things up. Say, you know what, she's been in gymnastics, or that person been in gymnastics longer than you have. If you work really hard, you'll get to work on those skills too. Let's see if you can do this. And then if you can just, like Scott is saying, build on it, know what the next progression is to help them to see that they're not going to be able to do everything. That's why we're here, is so that we can help you so that eventually you can get there. So just having those different levels, and to explain to the gymnasts that, you know what, you have to work at it, and you'll get it if you keep working and keep listening to what the coach is trying to tell you.
Yeah, Kelly's point is really good on that. Sorry, about letting everybody know, like not just the one gymnast that they're at different levels right at the beginning of the class. You know, we all have different levels here. So if you see somebody doing something that's more difficult, please don't try it, for a safety thing, number one, if you're not ready for it, because they're going to watch somebody do it and go, monkey see, monkey do, here we go. So make sure that's up front. That was a good point that you brought up, Kelly. It's just make sure that at the beginning of the class, let everybody know there's different levels so that they can pay attention to, please don't do this. And, or if you see something that you want to learn that you're ready for, let us know. But yeah, let all the gymnasts know there's different levels, because then they're aware, 100%. Kelly can do this. Okay. Just everybody knows that she can do this. And if you're still working on it, it's okay, for sure. Because that'll be me.
I think too, to that point, it's like, I guess you have to, as a coach, to take a step back. And if you think in this way, it might help with the specific event or circuit or apparatus that you're going to. Take a sec to think of, what fundamental movement patterns am I working on? And then you can break it out to what skills are those going to involve. And then once you identify those skills, you can find like a middle of the road skill, an easier skill, and a harder skill. So then you yourself are already prepared with a range. So if we're going to be going to, let's say, floor, we're going to be practicing a cartwheel. For our participants that are really struggling with doing a cartwheel, well, maybe they can just practice on having good hand placement, doing a cartwheel over a block, something like that. If you have a participant who's finding that dead easy, maybe have them do it on a line, have them do it with one arm. Maybe if you have it, I don't know, introducing round offs, things like that. So you're still doing the same fundamental movement pattern, doing a very similar skill, but you're just building off it. And again, by having those kind of, I guess, skills packed in the back of your mind and having that range for each skill of the progressions for it, as a coach, when you have participants of different ability levels, it'll make it a lot easier for you to be able to, I guess, manage your class and not have to be like on the spot, because it's almost impossible. We can talk about it now, no pressure. We don't have a group in front of us on the spot. We can think of 100 of progressions, but then when you have a group of 6 participants in front of you, and they're like, coach, what do I do? And you just forget everything. Then you're like, oh, it's a little panicky. So I know if it's on your sheet or your lesson plan, if you just write it down, like floor, round off, and then like cartwheel over a block, cartwheel on a line, things like that, like can help you. Love that. Any other questions or thoughts? Has anyone had their own experiences of ways they've found success or things that they've maybe struggled with in terms of having ranges of their participants and their ability levels? I guess one thing to remember too. Oh, go ahead, Mackenzie.
This is actually one of the questions that like I entered, so I don't know if like maybe you had it planned, but I coach the parent and taught classes, and for our baby stars, that's 1 to 2 year olds, and I find from a 1-year-old to an almost 2-year-old, it's such a huge range. Like the 1-year-old is just crawling and the 2-year-old is walking. That's probably one of like my hardest classes to have, like all the different progressions, because there's such a big range. And like in my current class last session, the one kid didn't want to try anything and the other one was like bored on everything. But if I I'd give her progressions, but then you can't make it too hard for like the kids in the middle. So yeah.
So I think Kelly is going to be the perfect person because she's an active start like legend. So funny you say that. And the thing too, and you actually hit the nail on the head. When we talk about ability level, it doesn't always necessarily mean their physical ability level. It could also be their own personal maturity and their cognitive ability to be able to listen and be able to focus and all these other things, let alone being able to do gymnastics. Like I always say, especially with these younger classes, as long as we can, like, I don't know, get through the class without crying and not like tear off like our socks and lose them in the gym and things like that, then we're having a great day. Right. And if we just so happen to learn gymnastics, bonus. But Kelly, I'll let you speak to that too.
I was just going to say, if it's a parented class, right at the start, let the parents know, you know what? Cognitively, physically, there's a big range, or can be a big range, between a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, and a just turned 1-year-old and a 2-year-old that's going to be 3 in 2 months. And let them know that don't compare your child to another child. If you've taken the Active Start course and we go through the holistic of the child and the differences in the age groupings, you know, it's an average between 1 and 100 children. That 51 child in the middle is the one that can do this, this, and this. And so that spectrum can be either way. Let the parents know this. Work through the parents and set your circuits up or your activities that you have that easier step, you have that harder step. It's okay if your 1-year-old can't climb up this little ladder. But you know what? Can they stand up and reach up to the top ladder? Can you hold them by their waist and you're supporting them as they're going up? Whereas that 2-year-old that's just about 3, sure, they can go up and they can ring the little bell at the top. There's nothing saying that you can't take that 1-year-old and help them up and then they can ring the bell. So they're still getting to ring the bell, but it's what part of the parent is helping out for them to achieve however you have it set up. So really work through with parents. And I know sometimes coaches get very nervous when parents are there. So you're here, work. That's why the parent is there, is to help the child out. So if you've built your program so that there are those different options that they have, then you might find that it's a little bit easier and not as challenging with, you know, those age groups all mixed together and working with them. So it is hard, but there are ways, and you just, with experience, think, okay, this doesn't work. This 1-year-old can't climb over this block. Oh, well, that's okay. Have them go climb around it or crawl around it.
Love that. Great suggestions. To that point, I'm curious now, Mackenzie, for this group, 1 and 2-year-olds, they are parented classes, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, so we have, I think it's 12 months, so that's like a year to 2 years. So
Mhm.
like 24 months, I think, is the cutoff.
Mhm.
And that's parented, and it's a 45-minute class. So we do 3 stations for 15 minutes. And then we have the 2-year-olds to the 3-year-olds, and that's an hour class with 15-minute stations. And then once they're 3, we do unparented.
Nice. I think something that's interesting too, and this kind of goes back to the point we were talking about earlier in terms of class management and having that one participant that's really having a hard time and being able to keep up with the program. From the, I guess, class management perspective, and a lot of this kind of got brought to light because of COVID over 2 years ago, in terms of when we were able to get back to classes, class management, because at the time there was, long story short, there were capacity limits and you couldn't have that many people in the gym. But then it also made it really tough because when you're dealing with the cognitive ability levels, just because biologically you're 3 years old, you might not cognitively be able to do that. So my point is, even where that participant that's really struggling, another alternative too, maybe even for a few classes, if they need to have their parent to be able to assist them throughout, like, I guess, a few weeks to kind of get their bearings so they can get on top of the program, that's great. At least me personally, and Kelly, you can kind of tell me what your perspective is, or Scott, or any of the rest of you. When I teach a parent and talk class, I'm almost more talking to the parents than I am the participants. Of course, I'm engaging with the participants, but because each taught has their parent with them, as long as the parents kind of know what to do, they can guide their their child through each station and kind of remind them what to do. Then after you kind of let them go, then as a coach, you can kind of just float around and keep an eye. And if a parent or a participant's really struggling with something, then that's when you can step in and help them. But again, as a young coach, first parent to talk classes I've coached, terrifying, because I'm young and I'm talking to these parents and they're adults and they're scary and it is hard.
I hated my first parent talk classes. Exactly the same situation.
Yeah.
Right? You're just starting, you're a teen, they're adults. That role's reversed now, of course, but I on the same point as that, Bobby, is I specifically say in my parent talk program that to the parents right from day one, I'm talking to the children, but I'm really talking to you.
Yeah.
Right. I want to talk and I'm going to engage with the children, but you're the parents that I'm really talking to because you're the ones who have to pay attention. I don't expect the little 2 and 3-year-old to remember a darn thing I said after 2 minutes. So yeah, but I let the parents know 100%. You need to let them know they have to pay, because if you don't let them know that, they're going to sit there and just be in la la land while you are talking to the kids. Because I'm sure you ran into that situation where they get up, okay, you spread them out in the circuit and start follow the leader, and the parents sit there just staring at you like, what are we supposed to do? I wasn't paying attention. So you have to make sure they're paying attention.
Yeah. I think the one thing that really helped me in terms of teaching parent and talk classes and feeling more comfy with it is remembering that me as a coach, I am a subject matter expert of gymnastics. Maybe not with talking to adults at that point in time or class management, even to some degrees, but I know gymnastics. I know how to teach a roll and I know how to teach how you're going to crawl across the beam. And if you can say those things and lead with confidence, both the parents and then eventually their children will buy into it. And then everything will feel smooth. And I don't know, for the first probably 6 weeks of the 8-week session I first taught, I had butterflies in my stomach every time I had to talk to the parents if this is the next station we're going to. But the more you practice it, the more you lead with confidence and remember that you are an expert in teaching gymnastics and gymnastics skills specifically, it'll at least make that part of managing that class a lot easier. Because then the class management and the variables of our participants and what they're going to do that day, can't control that. But you can control and you can be in control of what you do know and what you can deliver. Love that. Great questions. I'm trying to look at our other class management ones because I'm already looking at the questions we have today. I think we're going to mostly focus on class management. The next session that we're going to get into, we're going to jump into more games and things like that. So that'll be a fun one. Okay. Any other thoughts in terms of, I guess, different ability levels or age ranges in a class before I move on to the next one? Because it is going to be a little different. No? All right, cool. So next question is going to talk about, I'm going to do this one. In terms of what are some ways to test efficiently in an 8-week session? And to make sure we're all on the same page, when we say testing, we're talking about the progress reports that we have for our participants that we need to give them at the end of the session. Is that correct? Yeah, cool. So in terms of what are some ways to test efficiently in an 8-week session, I'm sure Kelly and Scott, you have lots of experience, or even anyone else in the rest of the room. If you have suggestions or things that you do that you think works, don't be shy. Unmute yourself and you can just share.
I'm going to let Kelly lead this one because I'll be honest with you. When we were running our gym previously, we didn't do can gym testing.
Okay, right? Sure.
So that was just it's a philosophy we went with for a while, for quite a few of the last handful of years there. So I think Kelly would have a lot more. I mean, I can still give answers to this, but Kelly can go nuts on this one.
All this kind of how we've gone about it is that with the first 3 classes, that depending on which level, more the beginner type levels, is that they try and introduce each skill at least 2 or 3 times. So depending on how long the class is that you've introduced them, and then that 4th, 5th, and 6th is when you reintroduce them, and that's when they have a check off list. Not that they're doing it right as, you know, oh, Kelly's got it. Oh, Scott doesn't have it. Oh, and checking it off that way, just as a coach, you know, you've gone through it. I tell them maybe mark down, if it's a skill that no one has, mark down 1 or 2 names in your class that get it. Or if it's a skill that everyone's getting easy and there's maybe 1 child that's struggling a little bit, then you just mark that 1 child down. So you don't need to have all 8 kids listed and okay, Kendra, you're next. Bobby, and going that way, because it just disrupts the class. And as a coach, then you always have a paper in your hand. I like have the kids going through it and then either take a mental note of who got it or who doesn't have it. And then at the end of the class, take your 5 minutes or however long it is to mark it down that way. I've seen too many coaches sitting down saying, okay, we're going to do a forward roll. I want so-and-so, you're up, and just time waster. And the kids aren't having fun. Play a game. You can see as they're playing through this game, who can do this certain skill or who can't. So that's kind of, and then usually within the 6 classes, we do a 9-week session. Then usually the 7 and 8 is where you can work on those ones that they're having a little bit of trouble with, or the ones that can get it really easily, work on to the next badge level, or make, the next harder skill, give them a little bit of a challenge for it. And then on the 9th one, who's got it, who doesn't.
I used to use lists also where there was a binder nearby and or a chart, depending on the size of the class or gym. And then it's part of what activities they're doing, and they can come running over and, hey, Coach Scott, I can do this, right? And then you can say, okay, quickly show me, and then they go and check it off themselves. I find the kids actually like going to put that checklist. So it all depends on the availability of wall space on your gym and or the binder and the kids. But I find that, if they came to you saying they can do it, you quickly say, yeah, thumbs up, perfect, go check that off. They really like that. And I agree with Kelly 100%. Please don't sit there and just do it one at a time. Okay, now show me your forward roll. Okay, great. Because all you're doing is putting everybody on the spot, as in, we have, say, 6 gymnasts in a row, but only 2 are really good at it, or 5 are good at it, and the other one isn't. He's not going to feel that good about not being able to do it in front of everybody else. So it's better if you can do the checklist and the testing when it's not that whole all at once, because if I can't do it, I'm going to be super embarrassed to do it, and I'm not going to be very happy when I'm at home. For sure.
Go ahead, Mackenzie.
So that was my question. So we have an 8-week session right now, but our testing is due on the night of our 6th session. So we really only have like 6 weeks to test. And I just find it's really tricky because we test all the way from our future stars. So that's like when they're 2 to like and up. And it's hard to test like 3-year-olds and stuff like that, because every day for a 3-year-old I find is different, right? Like some days they can do stuff and some days they can't. But even for like our red classes, it's hard to go through the levels. So I do sit and like test stuff, but not so much in the way you guys explain it. Like if I do my circuit and there's 5 things, and normally I have another coach with me when I do this, then like I'll go to one spot, and as they go to it, I'll mark it off. So like it's not just like they're all lined up and have to do one thing. So I don't know, it's
That's
just
good.
really hard to get through everything in 6 weeks, because like the first couple weeks you want to teach them, and I find it's hard to teach them in 6 weeks. I don't know if you have any suggestions.
I think it just really comes down to lesson planning, like finding what you need to test and just making sure that that's set up where you need to and when you need to. So, but I agree with the 3-year-olds that they can be a little flaky on skills. Sometimes they have it and then sometimes they don't. And I do the same thing too, where I also will mark things down as they're like doing them, but like when they go to gather and stuff like that. So I don't have any great answers for you, but for me, I just find it really a lot easier when I have a really structured lesson plan. Sometimes I even have multiple pages for one class.
Really good suggestions. Love that.
Yeah, Mackenzie, you're exactly on the right track as far as that goes. If they're passing you in that station and you check them off, or you don't check them off as they go by, then that's great, because then they're not being put in front of the rest of the class. No, it's good.
It's a tough one, like doing, I guess, progress reports at 3 years old. Because you're so right. Like at that age, participants can be so all over the place, depending on if they had dino nuggies like right before they got to go to the gym, or if they maybe had a bad day. Maybe they woke up from a nap and then like they're already in the car and like, oh my gosh, I'm doing gymnastics. I'm not into this at all. So yeah, that's a challenging one for sure. But I think with these suggestions in terms of having good lesson planning and trying to just essentially, while still coaching, making mental notes, I'm going to take a guess that within your progress reports, there are some things that you could probably, I guess, check or not check without having to see that in front of you or having them in front of you. So that'll help kind of cut down the thing too. And then for those key skills that are kind of on the maybe yes, maybe no, then those are maybe the things you'd focus on more.
Yeah, and I have found doing Simon Says is really helpful.
Love that. Yeah,
Like,
super
because
smart.
then they all have to do it and they like think it's a game.
Yeah.
But for our 3-year-old classes, we changed it so they don't have to have all the skills to pass. They just have to be 4. But I even find that's tricky because then sometimes you have somebody who's like passed 3 sessions in a row, because we just changed it. So it's like 5 sessions a year. Because yeah, I think it's 5. So then like if you put your kid in right when they turn 3, then they might have to do like a whole year of the same level. And like, I don't know if you care at 3, but like when you get to the older levels and you know that you're in the same level, I don't know, it's tricky.
I was also going to say working on the same things and sort of just picking a station to sit at, because with the 3-year-olds, there's not actually a ton of skills for all, but that's for me. I don't know if that's for everyone, but, and also we use learning as one of the things that we can check off. So we'll put like mastered learning or attempted. So you can mark off if things are not completely finished yet, and then you can keep an eye on them next time. But if you pick a station, you're still working on similar things. You can like glance your eyes over at that station that you marked off yesterday. And if they're not doing it today, you can change it to learning or whatever you needed, or if they can do it today, you're still noticing, but you pick that a different station than you did the last time. So you can mark off those ones that day and the other ones another day, that kind of thing.
We use a list like for our 2 to 3-year-olds, is just to let the parents know, like on their certificate, these are the skills that we've worked on through this session. So it's not really a checked off, that because you get some, you could say, that could be in your class for the whole year. And well, the first class, maybe they're that really good go-getter that can do it all. So instead of just having to check off that you've done these, it's just, these are the list of the activities that a 2-3-year-old should be able to be attempting, learning, or mastering. And then with our 3-4-year-old class, same thing. Here's another list of, and it progressively gets a little bit differently or different. But with that, you have to be careful, because you get some 3-year-olds that can't do some of that 2-3-year-old stuff. So there's a fine line with a lot of gymnastics, that everyone could be on the spectrum or they might not be.
And I'm just going to throw this out there because sometimes there's a little philosophy behind it and what's best for your program. Like, do you really need to be testing 3-year-olds? Like, I'm going to tell you my opinion right now, right out there, just because I do that. But in my mind, no way. But other programs think, yes, we want that structure of being able to tick off the boxes and stuff like that. But that's a really, really young age that, to me, go to class, enjoy your class, learn some skills, high fives, go home, you get your stickers, you get your whatever report, if you're even doing reports at that age. I just have to be upfront with, that's my opinion on, if you're following a specific program, great, and if it's working for you. But the reason you're challenged, I think that's the reason you're challenged at that age group, is it's a really, really young age to be trying to test skills for. So that's, sorry, I had to say my 2 bits, because when you said 3, I just went, holy moly. But if it's a program you're following, it works, great, but it's going to be challenging.
Yeah, we have, or I've seen a lot of clubs that, yeah, you have to move past this before you can go to the little hoppers, to the bigger hoppers, or whatever. We just say, you know what, they may in this program learn how to do a forward roll. We're working on progressions that lead up to it, and they may be able to do a little roll off of a block, which would be a next step. They're 3-4-year-olds. We don't do any testing with our 2-3-4-year-olds. But we do let the parents know these are the skills, these are the fundamental movement patterns that lead to specific skills.
Mhm. I think something to point out too is like there's no
And
raw.
for quite a few years now, and really haven't had any parents say, well, how come they didn't get a badge, or how come they didn't get,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, sorry, you froze there. I thought you were done, and then you weren't done, and I just started talking. Then we're both talking, but seems like you're done now. So one thing though, Mackenzie, not to like just no, there's no wrong answer to how to do it, right? As long as it works, then that's good. Again, it really depends on what your measures of success are. And you're going to hear me saying that a lot throughout this entire mentorship cycle, because I think that as a coach is if you can assess what your measures of success are for whatever you're doing, it'll make your lives a lot easier. So if the measure of success for this game is to get warm and have fun, achievable. If the measure of success is we're going to keep our clothes on and not cry as we get through our 1 or 2 year old class, wonderful, great, you know. But if you do that, it'll help you feel more confident as a coach, and just realizing that just because you might think of, oh my gosh, little Susie she didn't do her role very good today, but it's like, but behaviorally she did awesome. She listened and she tried her hardest and she left with a smile. So then if that's the case, then we're winning, right? So hearing this, I think that in my mind, because again, the way that we're doing this mentorship program is completely new from what we've done in the past. I've already kind of mapped out in terms of how we're going to do the next few sessions in terms of the topics. Today, primarily class management. We are at 7 o'clock, so I am going to cut it here so I can be respectful of your time. And I do appreciate you all being here tonight. What I was thinking for our next session, if we went Sunday, March 20th at the same time from 6 to 7, you can just give me a thumbs up. Does that work for you all? Medium, we'll see. Thumbs up, thumbs up.
Sorry. I'm teaching a course in Tabor and I kind of thought, oh crap, I'm gonna just be finishing that one. But that's the weekend before, so I'm good.
Oh, okay. Good for Kelly. And then
You said March 27th?
March 20th.
March 20th. Okay,
Yeah.
hold on.
Michaela, are you good, or are you just confirming the date?
I think she's checking her calendar.
Oh, okay. I'll ask for everyone for a thumbs up
But
and
if
she
you
just turned the
just
camera off.
answer
Yeah, I'm good.
No.
Sorry. Yes, I'm good.
Cool. All right. We're going to schedule our next session for then. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share this recording with all of my GFA friends. And there's a good chance that there's going to be a couple more people within our class, but we are going to still go through the questions that we have, because I do think that a lot of these questions are going to be quite similar. In terms of the themes of each, I guess, day, today was class management. Our next day is going to be games and probably class management that will go along with it. Third session, we're going to talk, then this is going to be for some of you, maybe a little bit more further down the road. We're going to talk about communication, coaching, coach recruitment, and eventually becoming like you as mentee coaches eventually are going to become mentor coaches, and how to do that, how to recruit coaches, how to work with other coaches, teaching them what you're learning today. And then depending on where we're at in terms of content, an idea I had, and again, I don't know where you are all at, in terms of like certification, are we all like Gymnastics Foundation certified? Are we trained? We're all certified? Yeah. Okay, cool. I was gonna say, because like if we were to offer a session where we could like go through the certification process and honestly just have a classroom session to work on it. I don't know if you are all like C1 trained and you want to work towards doing our C1 certification, like we could do that too, but I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. I think that we'll work on the core mentoring and the questions that we have. And if that is something that's of high interest, then we can do that. But if it's not, that can be a separate AGF thing that we do completely separate from this program. That's fine too. But yeah, I really appreciate you all being here tonight. So I'm going to stop our recording.